When you stumble across a tower on your evening stroll that's 300 foot tall, made of saxophones and looks creepy as balls, it's probably time to turn around. I guess no one told Tzar Boris, and now he's in trouble. Go figure. Kislev, Khorne, and the echoes of damnation, blasting across the valley in a battle of bears and bloodthirsters. I am playing as Tzar Boris. Oracle Samurai Warrior from Clan Legio Italica is playing as the Blood Host, and this was fought all the way back in January when we were still learning the game, so it's been a bit. But it was so good, I felt it was worth returning to. Kislevites find themselves in a bit of a predicament here. Back to the wall, loud noises from the totally evil tower directly behind them, and they've summoned an Exalted Bloodthirster with their musings. So Tzar Boris has his work cut out for him here. Thankfully, he's a bit of a beast. Quite tanky, quite mobile, big weapon strength and bonus versus large, with the Fury of Ursun, Shard Blade for slows and wave clear, which can be used in a duel to prevent an enemy's escape or to quickly delete surrounding fodder. And he also has 3 abilities that kick in as he drops low. The amazing Kislev faction passive by our blood, Heroic Resilience, and the Armor of Ursun. So just like Gestalten, he gets stronger and harder to kill the longer the battle drags on. A bunch of Kossars, Armored Club Kossars, and Streltsy, and the Little Grom, which feels invaluable to me in quite a few matchups. Big time cannonballs for big ass greater demons, and of course, the Light War Sleds, which are maybe the very best unit in Kislev's roster. Fantastic in every facet of the game, from skirmish to psychocharging to general resilience in the face of adversity. I will say the clubs on these bad boys are quite large. Feels like they're compensating for something. Doesn't seem like a very convenient weapon to wield or even lift, but hey, they pierce armor, which is useful versus the Blood God. My mage is a Frost Maiden of the Lore of Ice with access to only Heart of Winter, which was more of a funds issue than anything else if I remember correctly. I just didn't want to drop anything else to get a new spell, but generally, I'd say that's a mistake. Ice Sheet only costs 4 wins of magic. It's almost always going to be useful if you have ranged troops, which are kind of a necessity as Kislev. You saw in the last video how good Ice Sheet can be, or even just Frostblade, something you can cast more than twice would be good supplement here. But no matter, like I said, this was an early battle, still experimenting and trying stuff out. Across the valley march the Blood God's Foul Sons, and the World Eaters are led by an Exalted Bloodthirster with an ability aptly named Bloodthirst for extra charge bonus and speed. Taking cover behind the boulder in the center for now, flanked by 2 Skull Cannons, a horde of Bloodletters and Fleshhounds, and the mighty, the magnificent Skullcrushers of Khorne, the premier all-around monstrous cavalry in Warhammer 3. Love them. Adore them. They make me happy, although, as is often the case with mounts, I wish their juggernauts were just a little bit bigger. Shock and awe to get this baby kicked off. Little Grom pounding Bloodletters into the pavement on their advance, and Skull Cannons will try and give it right back. Kislev has no hope of winning a melee grind here. They need to kill as many of those lesser demons as possible before the lines clash. I'm not particularly worried about the Skull Cannons. They're an okay unit, but not really on the level of Little Grom or Iron Blasters. They're less accurate and have way less base ammo. So in an ideal world, Kislev artillery would be sniping the Bloodthirster, the Skullcrushers, or the Exalted Bloodletters, but Samurai's using cover and range quite well and keeping those units protected for now. Here come the Doggos, and War Beasts receive some serious lovin' in Warhammer 3. Fleshhounds especially, but Sabertusks to a lesser extent, are just ridiculous for the price and completely blow War Lions and Ice Wolves and some of those Game 2 units out of the water. Fleshhounds are a wild unit, and I'm not sure they'll have a single bad matchup against any faction, even when Mortal Empires drops. That's how good they are. They're in the vanguard for now. First in, last out. Fleshhounds lead the way straight into the Kossars in the center, but the Bloodletters are close behind, and Khorne is looking to get randy in CQB. Now, normally I'd say terrain like this would favor Kislev because it's choke points. You can funnel the melee blobs into those little small areas and just blow it up with artillery, with ice magic, with nice focus fire from your ranged troops. The issue is that the battleground we've chosen here has lots of line of sight problems and divots that make it difficult for the Streltsy and some of these Kossars to fire in. Little Grom especially won't have line of sight for parts of this battle because of all the crevasses that the Khorne infantry can move into, and Samurai's doing a great job with his Flesh Hounds and Skullcrushers, overloading the right flank behind cover where little Grom cannot fire into them or deal any damage. So very good positioning with Khorne's assault at the moment, and the Exalted Bloodthirster is coming in now to deal with that big cannon. But Boris loves his bears. He cannot bear to lose them, and so begins the hunt. And this is where the Red Tsar hits above his weight class, because Erskine comes roaring in from the flank, Shard Blade enabled to cut the Greater Demon speed in half, and as he tries to flee, he's getting poked in the ass by a freezing halberd with hefty chunks of AP and bonus first large, and looking like the Exalted might have bit off more than he can chew. There was Streltsy nearby as well, so not something where he wants to just sit there and trade. Really cool effects on this map, by the way. That's why we're playing it. Every so often, the saxophones will sound, the trumpets will blast, and the cliffs will start breaking down as rocks tumble into the valley below. Heart of Winter in the center to begin slowing down the Skullcrusher aggression. There's a big group of Khornate troops forming there in and around the Winged Lancers, and that slow will start kicking in. The damage aura will get more devastating as time goes on, and if they sit there and just hang out in the aura, they will be in pain after a little bit. The problem is that the Streltsy have already moved into melee, and that's obviously a huge micro mistake. Again, those crevasses coming into play here, an entire range unit, which, to be fair, is hybrid and does have some AP, so they're not the worst thing ever, but they will lose handily to Bloodletters in melee combat, and they charge forward without being able to get a shot off. So they'll die. The Winged Lancers are forced to cover for their mistake, and the left flank for Kislev not looking so hot. In fact, all across the line, this is less than an ideal situation for Kislev, because if you don't have that layered defense in-depth ranked fire, if Khorne's just getting one-to-one engagements with all your infantry simultaneously, you might be in trouble. So something needs to be done to right the ship, and the bears will be a big part of that. Erskine with Tzar Boris astride him, charging forth to meet the Skull Cannon out on that side, Ice Sleds supporting from the flanks, and Winged Lancers sacrificing themselves in a bid to buy more time for the Streltsy, Little Grom, and Barians. And I mean, it took, what, 15 seconds there for Tzar Boris to kill that Skull Cannon? It melted, and it does not have the speed to get away from Tzar Boris' 82 mobility. So, yeah, good night. That thing will explode. That's a big pick there for sure, because the more you let that fight in melee, the more it regens health, and the more ammunition it reacquires to fire into your infantry or Ice Sleds in the late game. But the Bloodthirster stomped his way through. He's going after Little Grom in the background now. The entire right flank for Kislev has buckled. Ice Sleds must retreat, and here comes the single entity monster. But Tzar Boris is right there to zone him out once again. And you can tell the Exalted has no desire to fight Erskine in a 1v1. I think if they were both full HP and charge each other, it would have a good shot to win, and would probably win more than it would lose. But it took that first bad engagement, and now it realizes if they just have a straight up fight, Boris will beat the brakes off him with that Shard Blade. So for now, Bloodthirsters, or Bloodletters rather, there's way too much blood on the Khornate roster, man. It's so hard to keep track of. It's like the Bleak Swords and Dark Shards and whatever, all the edgy naming conventions for the Dark Elves. It's the same thing, but maybe even worse for Khorne. But the Exalted Bloodletters are pushing through the center. There's essentially no infantry left now. Skullcrushers saw to that, finishing off the rest of the Kossars, and it is a rout towards the edges of the map. But the balance of power is still maybe slightly in favor of Kislev, which I'm not sure is doing a good job of presenting exactly the strength of both factions at the moment. But it really comes down to whether or not Kislev can fire all their remaining ammunition, because if the Little Grom and the War Sleds have enough time to shoot into that Exalted Bloodthirster, and then they run over the rest of these Bloodletters in melee, they can certainly crawl their way back into it. Tzar Boris is doing his job for sure. He's holding back an entire section of the Khornate battle line. Bloodletters completely surrounding him, but he has that Shard Blade ability, and that deals about 35 to 65 damage per tick in an AoE around him, a very small AoE, so he can melt demons. Another of those trumpet blasts sounding across the valley, and Khorne has pushed through in the center. They've killed off an entire Ice Sled unit. Tzar Boris unleashing the Shard Blade on the Bloodletters, and immediately they will crumble out. I don't actually know overall how much damage that can do. I haven't done the math. So perhaps it would have been better to hold on to that until maybe the Exalted Bloodletters or some of these more healthy units of demonic infantry had gotten in close to Tzar Boris, but either way, I think he wanted to free up that side and make sure Little Grom was safe up top to fire in, and they can kind of hold that choke point for now if they are able to push back these Skullcrushers and maybe have that cannon fire in from above and mess up the infantry. Here comes the Skull Cannon, here come the War Sleds doing what they can to push back the demonic tides, running into melee, bowling them over, and doing all those Bariat things that Bariats love to do. They're just such a good unit. And they're firing while they're in melee too, like, they're everything War Wagons wish they could be and more. Fantastic, but the Streltsy are tied down by the Skull Cannon and the Bloodletters, and it does not look like they will be able to survive. With the Bloodthirster marching its way over, the Ice Sleds will have to retreat, but Lil Grom has been given a ton of space here, and Tzar Boris is camping it, face camping it, just making sure that nothing can get close. Exalted Bloodletters just crumbled out. Streltsy using their hybrid melee capabilities to do whatever they can, but yeah, they'll be decapitated shortly. And here comes a Heart of Winter. Now, this has happened to me more often in Warhammer 3 than any of the other Warhammer games. I'm not sure why it keeps happening. I'm pretty sure you can single target on Cav, but either it was a misclick or if a unit's moving, the point target doesn't work as well. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I just straight up whiffed it. And if I held on to it for maybe 5-10 more seconds, would have gotten a lot more value on top of that Bloodthirster and these Skullcrushers too, who are completely surrounding Tzar Boris, and he's in mortal peril. Little Grom doing the charm and shuffle, cleaning their dirty butts with the finest toilet paper on the market, and a brutal point-blank shot from the cannon, instantly deleting 1,000 HP and killing 6 models, which may be enough to let Tzar Boris escape. And meanwhile, the Skullcrushers who died there, just floating in the ether, not ready to join Khorne in the Brazen Throne. Exploded so hard, they're still in shock, just floating there. And the Exalted Bloodthirster looking to disengage because Tzar Boris is unbreakable right now and he's mad. Skullcrushers just routed off. He's going after Little Grom, realizing the threat that it poses. Meanwhile, the Ice Sled on this side running over the Bloodletters, and the Skull Cannon can't really do anything to provide mass. I don't think it'll deal much damage to the sleds in melee. And Tzar Boris, he's chasing after the Bloodthirster, who is frostbit, 30% slow, and 1 or 2 attacks might be enough to make that Bloodthirster crumble, and Tzar Boris routs. Why? His flank is entirely turned. If he lands 2 attacks there, they win the game. Instead, he gets terrified, he runs off the map, and that's a huge loss for Kislev, and might indeed be the battle. We'll see how things progress from there, but that is catastrophic for the motherland. Ice Mage and Lil Grom fighting back-to-back, surrounded by Flesh Hounds. Now the Exalted Bloodthirster lands from behind, and I don't see any way back. The Buy Our Blood passive will start kicking in for Kislev's remaining troops, but that will only stave off army losses so long, and there's absolutely no way that an Ice Witch can take on a Exalted Bloodthirster in combat. It's just not gonna happen. So that will be your battle. Mass rout incoming. And well played to Oracle Samurai Warrior. It was a super fun game, but Tzar Boris, who had been awesome the entire battle, he crumbled at the worst possible moment. Seriously, that Bloodthirster was not ready to fight him. He was just trying to escape. And with 1 or 2 good combat rolls, I'm pretty sure that Bloodthirster dies. And Tzar Boris could have survived. So him getting terrified at that moment that felt bad. I was very sad about that because he had been so good. And honestly, he was the only reason I was in that game, because I did make some micro mistakes there for sure. A lot of it was due to terrain. Basically, you click an attack order on enemy infantry and then don't realize they don't have line of sight. The Streltsy run forward 5, 10, 15, 20 steps too far, and then they don't get their shot off, and then they just get murdered. So that first unit of Streltsy did nothing. Tzar Boris got 2,000 damage value. The Heart of Winter in the late game too was also a problem. It's happened when I've used Phantasmagoria too. I'll click on a unit, and then it'll only target the ground, which is weird because it's kind of hard to misclick a unit when you're literally clicking on an entire unit of cavalry. So I wonder there's some mechanics there, interaction I'm not aware of. Maybe someone in the comment section might know. The Ice Sleds were awesome. 2,000 damage value, like so good. And overall, I think maybe if I did a more defense in-depth approach rather than trying to defend every single choke point on that map, probably would have gone a little bit better. But I mean, yeah, the rush build here was awesome. Very thematic from Khorne and very well played from Clan Legio Italica for sure. The Flesh Hounds were basically 1,500 damage value on a 650 gold unit, just bananas. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that battle. Plenty more content coming soon, and I'll see you all in the next one. Any Pride, signing out for now. Have a go, guys.